Oh, Lord. Here we go. Another the assault on all of our systems. It's amazing to keep up any amount of good humor during all of this. Let's check in with how Cop City is going. I think that's how we're going to start, right?
Yeah, well, we have a short video. I think it sort of explains a little bit if people don't know what Cop City is.
Yeah, and also the latest development. Okay. Right? All right.
Maybe.
Are you pushing?
Atlanta police officers descended on a gathering of activists and arrested 30 people and at least one legal observer. Activists organized a music festival for families as part of their week of action to stop the building of Cop City in Atlanta, where police showed up and started to harass participants. The Atlanta Police Foundation is building a $90 million police militarization facility to train officers in urban warfare, which is known by activists as Cop City. Legal observers wear bright green hats to differentiate themselves from action attendees, and their purpose is to ensure people's constitutional right to protest is protected. The work of legal observers is crucial. Observers collect names of people arrested at protests as the first step towards ensuring that they have legal representation. This gathering is one of many actions happening this week by activists who are calling on people around the country to support them in their fight against the building of Cop City.
So they arrested how many people?
I think 41. Look at
41
that.
peaceful activists. Good job. Nice job, Pat. Including the person on the ground there who is an observer, not even an activist, right?
And they just mentioned that in the video, I think.
Yeah.
I was tuning it out, but I watched it earlier. But so he's a reporter, like literally for NLG, a legal observer. So wait, what are these initials?
I think, and also the Southern Poverty Law Center. Yeah. And they were all arrested and also held without bail. I think the only person who is allowed to go in the end was him. Everybody else. So first of all, I mean, I'm already, even before COVID, I'm a big germaphobe. I can't imagine a moment in a jail right now, especially with COVID. They are just being held there, no bail, no set, and we see this happening for the last 3 years. And I mean, for years before that at Rikers, people who are dying there, who are being held, charges haven't even been brought. They don't have a court date and they are dying there because they're being held without bail or because they can't afford their bail. But in this case, they're being held. They're not allowed to post bail. They're just being held there for protesting against the destruction of this forest and the creation of a fascist police state.
Also known as domestic terrorism.
Yeah, that's the Biden DHS. Thank you so much for bringing your empathy and the soul of a nation.
So I think I came across the fact that, I don't know. I read some shit online.
Yeah.
We're going to call that a fact.
Yeah, it's a fact.
But no, so obviously, so it's $90 million is being spent on Cop City, which is ridiculous. It's $90 million. They're doing every atrocity you can imagine. They're plowing indigenous land. All the trees.
They've already killed a tree protector, right? A land protector. Point blank.
And they lied about what happened to him. It's just ridiculous. So it hits all the notes of like just pure evil. And it's a Cop City. It's a training ground where they run around and hut. It's just lobbing grenades. This is a training ground for how to fight protesters is what it's really coming down to. But so what's interesting is that Pittsburgh, nobody's talking about it. Pittsburgh's had on the books. They're working on this right now. One that's $120 million. So they're like taking it up 30%. And that's happening in Pittsburgh right now. So this is the model, states are going to start building these like anti-protester training grounds. And I think one thing that's important is like, how are we paying for all this stuff? How are these states paying for it?
Well, now that COVID's over, you can use that money to fund your fascist police state.
COVID money literally is going to Atlanta's Cop City. I mean, in Atlanta, they're paying cops to live in the
subsidize their housing. Yeah.
That's the idea. It's like, we're not handling anything about the homeless people. We're not doing anything on that. We're taking the money from the American Rescue Plan, and we're making sure cops are housed well. Like,
by the way, the number one killer of cops last year, COVID. Number one killer.
don't make me root for COVID.
Oh my God.
Sorry, good
no,
cops. Sorry.
I'm sure there's a good apple out there somewhere.
My little piggy.
Yeah, I know. I it's a little bit troublesome to drink something that's so delicious that's called Little Piggy, but we'll fight that one out.
I mean, it could have been
yeah.
called "Fuck the Police." That's
I think that's I think that has a ring to it. That's what I call my drink. It's the "Fuck the Police" drink. Yeah, it's disgusting, and it doesn't get to the root of where the crime is. It doesn't prevent crime. All of that money could be going to much better use. We know that cops don't prevent crime. We know that funneling money into these organizations doesn't do. All it does is exacerbate the problems in the communities that they terrorize. You know, the latest thing, and we're not really going to get deep in this, but there was a resolution that is being voted on by the city council in DC, which for those fight for democracy and democracy's on the ballot people should be shocked to know that when they decided in part of their criminal justice reform platform to lower some of the penalties for things like carjacking, Biden has decided he disagrees with that so much that he will veto the democratically approved ballot that would decrease some punishments for certain crimes. So much for democracy. You get your vote, you get your independence, DC, unless we disagree with what you say, and then you don't get to determine your own future.
Yeah, and I mean, just think back to Biden, you know, his election in 2020, like Black Lives Matter was all the rage.
Yep.
Went from having majority support across both parties to it lowered the support like after Biden's administration.
Biden told him to shut up and dribble.
Yeah, you know, the whole narrative is like any Democrat can say defund the police was bad. It was bad PR. Like, okay, so what? So it wasn't bad PR, first off. But if it was bad PR, what does that matter? Like, fight about the issues. Like, talk about, you know, rephrase it. Say, instead of defund, you know, what we should do is this, which just means we're going to give first responder calls that aren't violent criminals to the social groups that we already are paying for. And we're going to give them more money to handle more of that stuff instead of cops who just shoot people.
Yeah.
But I did want to point out another thing that I read, because I'm reading a lot these days. This is
Look at you.
College does to you. So there's another thing that's not being talked about enough. So there's a rule that Biden's administration is blocking. A bipartisan group came forward to say that it's not fair to take somebody who was found innocent or not guilty of a crime. And so someone's found innocent or not guilty of a crime.
Not guilty.
Let's call them not guilty, because, well, innocent is not guilty. This is why the legal thing. But they're not guilty of a crime, and they come before the judge again for a different case, and they're found guilty. And the jury says this should be the sentencing.
Sentencing, right. The judge can go back into that person's history.
Yeah. So what the bipartisan group said is it's not right that a judge can go back into the history and look at a crime where this person was found not guilty and use that to change their sentencing.
Right.
So say that the city wants to go after this guy that they just don't like. Cops decide they don't like this guy or whatever, and he's found not guilty. Well, they finally get him on this one charge. He's finally guilty of X. Well, they can say, look, the judge is like, oh, he did this other thing. And so they could throw the book at this guy and jail him forever indefinitely, because we've removed all logic from the system. We've given all this power. So this is a bipartisan thing that people said this is not right. And Biden's administration and there's such a determination to be tough on crime, is fighting a bipartisan group. So they're fighting Republicans on this thing to be tougher on crime.
I mean, he's given more money to the police than Trump did. And, you know, I was actually, I mean, pleasantly surprised. I don't know how much leverage they have, but a few Democrats did call out Biden for saying that he would veto the measure that I was just talking about, that the DC City Council proposed or voted on democratically. But I don't know. Nothing seems to matter. I feel like, you know, under George W. Bush, he would say and do the most heinous things, and it was like a test bubble for what he could get away with. And it was outrageous. And then Obama came, and he at least gave lip service to so many of the policies and ideas that so many of us want and desperately need. And then Trump came, and it was all outrage and test bubbles again for what's the most outlandish thing I can say and do. And, you know, it can only last for so long in the news cycle, because the next day there would be something else just as outlandish. Like, I mean, you look at what's happening right now, where the lab leak theory has now been given quite a bit of credulity. The Nord Stream pipeline was revealed by Cy Hirsch.
Never heard that story.
Nobody's talking about any of that, right? You know, so I don't know how to get a hold on what the truth that we should all be focusing on is, but it is really disappointing that all of those Black leaders who were on a call, and not that it should all fall on them, but on that call, that Zoom call that was leaked when Biden was first elected before he took office in December, where he told them basically, shut up and wait your turn. And hey, the Latin people in this country are going to replace you soon. And then you'll know what it's like to be like, he was so disgustingly dismissive to them. It was all out in the open, and nobody has followed up on that. Like, when does he have to pay the price for, where's the George Floyd Act? As like toothless as it is, as much as it wouldn't do anything really at all, but like that hasn't even passed. That was supposed to happen in the first year.
For normie Democrats, everything Trump said applies to Biden. Like, Biden could shoot someone in the street. They wouldn't care.
Yeah,
they really wouldn't. They would say, well, Trump would shoot two people.
Right.
He just shot one, and he did it humanely.
His rape wasn't as bad. He only raped one person.
It wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But,
I had these terrible headaches, was diagnosed with having anyway, they had to take the top of my head off a couple times, see if I had a brain.
Leader of the free world. Okay.
Taking his head off. They took my head off a couple times.